All right, hey guys, happy 2026. First time I've ever jumped in and done this. So I set up OBS tonight to try and see if I could sort of record and maybe get into sharing some snippets of how I'm thinking about .NET, Azure, C Sharp, a lot of the AI stuff. That I've been kind of playing with, both professionally and personally, and be able to kind of share some of that and talk through my thoughts around some of this stuff and some of the hurdles I've faced and kind of how I've gotten over some of those. So bear with me. Super excited to kind of to share this and try this out here. So without too much more ado, I'm going to kind of jump in. What we're going to talk through today is very simply MCP. I would call it kind of MCP server testing locally. So um, I've been working through some MCP servers that we're going to be hosting up in Azure for Copilot Studio or different kind of client front ends to talk to. Um, but what I wanted to do was have a quick kind of inner loop developing these MCPs, and so I could kind of test them quickly and be able to make changes without having to kind of deploy them to Azure every time and that. So I think I found a pretty good way of doing that. So I wanted to kind of share that. So here I am in Visual Studio, just in the file new prompt, and I'm going to create an empty ASP.NET Core project here. Doesn't get any simpler than that. So let's change this actually to the C code. That's my main code place, and I'm just going to call this my MCP. My MCP. Just keep it simple. Next. And this is fine for now. .NET 10, obviously that's the latest with Visual Studio. By the way, I'm on Visual Studio 2026 Insider, but that doesn't really matter. This can be done anywhere you have .NET 10 installed, which comes with Visual Studio. So that should be very easy, and that's free for you to do this. So I'm going to create this. Let this spin up here. All right, sweet. So we'll postpone and install that later. So here I am, basically just in Visual Studio. Everyone's hopefully has seen this, and this project doesn't get really any simpler. You can see here, basically, it's literally for 7 lines, and it's creating a builder. It's creating one simple endpoint of the forward slash. So when you hit the root, it gives you hello world. So we can run that just to kind of show where we are and get a baseline. I'll let this load up. And boom, hello world displays. Okay, easy. Um, so what I want to do is basically build a tiny little MCP server off of this that we can then use for testing in VS Code over here. Okay, so I have a little cheat sheet over here. We need one package. So we can go over to NuGet, right click on your project, hit NuGet, and then search for the model context protocol.ASP.NET Core. Okay. And okay, we'll go over to browse and boom, that comes up. Obviously, we've got 1.5 million downloads, so definitely people are playing with this. It's still obviously early in preview, but it's pretty awesome as it is right now. So I'm just going to go ahead and install that. Yep. And let that load in. Okay, we'll just do a build and make sure that that's loaded in okay. All right, and then if you just come over here to your project file, you can see that that package got installed. So boom, we're good to go. Okay, so given that, I'm going to basically just take this snippet and come up here to my builder. And this is just the simple builder pattern that the whole kind of ASP.NET Core and stack is built around. And it's really simple. We're just adding the MCP server, and we're saying, hey, instead of using kind of the other way of doing it, which is like more the standard IO, this is with HTTP transport. So in that way, obviously it can be hosted in Azure and be talked to from that perspective. And then with tools from assembly. So this is going to be important here so that any tools that I've created within this project or within this assembly will automatically get picked up via this setting here. There's a couple different ways you can kind of reference tools or the tools that you're creating, but I found this to be kind of the simplest. So with that, all we really need here is just this map MCP. So I'm going to get rid of my hello world one that was created automatically with a template and just say app.mapMCP and then app.run. Okay, so that's it. So I'm going to go ahead and run this, and what should come up here is okay. Yeah, so that's because I don't have any tools. So that's fine. So let's double check here. App build. Yeah. So I'm just going to create a class for tools. So I'm just going to call this my tools. Again, creative, I know, but it gets the job done. And then this is just a simple class here. So all I'm going to do is get rid of this and just use top level namespaces and bring in this tool, and we'll talk about what this is doing. So simple static class, my tools, like we talked about. This is how the assembly knows which type or which attribute to be able to pick up from, because we're saying, hey, we've got an MCP server here with tools. And then I have one tool in here, and I know it's rudimentary and dead simple, but it gets the point across. And so all this is doing is just an add method. And the description, very simply, is add two numbers. And so when we think about the LLM talking to this MCP server, the description itself is what tells the LLM what it can do or what its functions are, right? So just to keep it simple, I'm saying add two numbers, but here you could have really any logic, right? You could go hit your own API, or you could hit a database, or do whatever. It's just a simple method from that perspective. And then what you do want to be aware of is just ensuring that any parameters for the method that you're wanting to include have a description on them with something that makes sense for what the parameter is, right? So I have that set up here, MCP server tool with a description, and then descriptions for each parameter. Again, keeping this simple so as not to get too crazy here. So I should be able to run this, and hopefully we shouldn't error. Yeah, okay, cool. So that the reason why it errored before is because I didn't have any tools, and so I don't know if that's just something of hey, the library itself wants you to have that or whatever. But this is good. This means that it's saying, hey, I need an MCP client that can give me a proper handshake so that I can kind of start being able to communicate with it. The browser itself doesn't have that ability. So that's it. That's it from a coding perspective in with MCP. Again, think about how you could then expand this to your own endpoints and your own tools that you want to be able to do. Okay, so we have our MCP server out there. So now the interesting part is, how do I in VS Code talk to my local MCP server here, right? So I could come over here, and I just created a new folder on the desktop. So I just have an empty workspace with nothing in it. So all I did was just file new folder, or right click new folder, and then I just said, hey, open VS Code from that folder. So I'm just in the context of an empty folder. But I'm over here, and I can just I could say obviously I'm just in Copilot, GitHub Copilot here, hello, and get a response back. Yeah. Okay, cool. So I want to be able to connect basically this folder, this local instance of VS Code and Copilot to my MCP server. Okay. So how do we do that? Very simply. So I'm going to come up here and create a new folder here, and it's a .vs Code folder. So if you think about kind of how Microsoft is doing all these kind of dot folders with .github folders, .vs Code. There's a .vs folder for Visual Studio. They've got a VS Code folder for a top level kind of way for them to be able to host these type of things. So I have my empty VS Code folder, .vs Code folder, VS Code folder, and I'm just going to create an MCP.json in there. And all this is doing is giving me an area or a space that VS Code recognizes where I can add my own custom MCP connection to this folder space. Okay, so then that way, this area, this workspace, this folder knows about my MCP server. Okay, so it's just this simple. It's a little JSON blob here. And I'm just going to paste that in there and save. And then I'm just going to double check here. I'm going to go to my properties in Visual Studio, my launch settings. That's app settings. My launch settings. Cancel that. And my HTTP endpoint is localhost 5159. Okay. So why that's important is because that needs to match up with the configuration in VS Code. So then that way it knows what endpoint to hit. Very simply. Okay, so I'm going to come back over to Visual Studio. I'm just going to run my project again. Same JSON here. That's great. And I'm going to go ahead and go back into Visual Studio VS Code here, and you'll notice up here there's a little start icon. So what this is doing is basically saying, hey, I realize that you've kind of started to set up the context of an MCP server. Do you want me to go and try and connect to it? Sure. Hit start. Perfect. Running. Okay, that's awesome. So what this means is it successfully did a handshake with my local MCP server that I'm running here. And you can see right here, this is my debug kind of output of my MCP, and you can see the handshakes that it's done from the client of VS Code Insider to get a list of tools and that. So that's awesome. So then I can come down here to my Copilot and say configure tools, and then boom, I'm in here. Here's my built-in tools. VS Code just comes with these tools pre-loaded, kind of set up and everything. But here's my MCP server that we just created that adds 2 numbers. Okay, so now VS Code in the context of this folder space and everything recognizes my my MCP server. So if I went and added another method in there, I could go and do that, and then come in here and restart that, and now I'd have two methods, and they would show up in here. So I could add one to many and kind of do testing. So since that is showing up now, I'm going to come back to my tool and set a breakpoint here in my one add method, right? And so I could just come down here and say, I want to get the sum of 2 numbers that are 80 and 44, let's say. Okay, perfect. So GitHub Copilot with the MCP connection is smart enough to go and say, hey, I know that there is an MCP method out there that I have access to that's called add that can add 2 numbers. And it's automatically then, before calling my method even, it knows the fact that, hey, I require an int of A and an int of B, so 2 ints, and it's automatically then translated my my 80, my word here 80, to the number 80, and then it's mapped to 44 as well. And then it says, hey, are you sure you want me to make this method call, because I'm going to be calling an MCP server? And then, so you just want to kind of make sure that, hey, you know what it's calling and what it's doing. But you could come in here and say, hey, I always wanted to, so you don't always have to click allow. You can come in here and change some settings around that. There's also like a YOLO mode you can do, which will just automatically kind of call anything that comes up. I use that sometimes, but only kind of on my personal stuff and when I'm really kind of vibe coding, if you will. So I'm just going to click allow here, and boom, you'll see that we're right back in Visual Studio. I've got my breakpoint hit. I've got my two parameters being passed in as was described. It's going to do the addition, and then we're back in VS Code, and it's given me the answer. So that's really it. Now you can imagine then, hey, as you're testing and you want to be able to go and add new methods, change different things, tweak different things, be able to very quickly kind of iterate on your communication there between VS Code maybe and your Visual Studio project. So that's it for today. Hope you guys enjoyed, and stay tuned for hopefully more videos. Thanks.